All right, diving right in today, we're tackling counterterrorism. Big topic, especially for you UPSC folks out there, the International Relations crew.
Definitely a cornerstone of global affairs, yeah.
Goes way deeper than just, defining terrorism. It's about how countries actually fight back. What are the strategies?
That's what we're breaking down exactly.
So three main strategies we're going to hit. Beefing up, state security, military, well, let's call it what it is, repression, and then political deals. Each one kind of tricky, honestly. Pros and cons, long term, does it even work?
No easy answers. Super nuanced. Like, what are the unintended side effects, And how's all this play out in the real world?
All right, so state security first up. Got some interesting case studies here. Israel, Sri Lanka, Spain, the UK. Terrorism's been a long game for them.
Yeah.
What's crazy is they've all gotten way stricter security-wise. Emergency laws, the whole 9 yards.
9/11 just threw gasoline on that fire globally. Suddenly, even countries known for being like super liberal, democratic, they're all about security enhancements. That whole open society thing, freedom, interconnectedness, it felt vulnerable, man.
So like trade-off time. Lose a little individual freedom for the sake of, well, everyone's safety. What were some of those measures specifically?
Oh, lots. Finance was a huge one. Crackdown on money moving around so terrorists can't fund their operations.
Makes sense. Cut the cash, cut the attacks.
Yeah.
What else?
Immigration got a lot tighter, especially when things felt dicey. Who are we letting in? What are their ties? Big concerns, especially about extremist groups.
Surveillance, too, I bet.
Oh, huge. Tech went crazy, and it was all about, high-risk folks, which ethically, that's a whole debate, right? Profiling, privacy.
Yeah, super slippery slope. You got to find the threats, but you can't just go discriminatory either. Any specific laws or policies that really stand out?
Two big ones. The UK, they passed laws saying, hey, we can hold suspects for like 28 days, no charges. Super controversial, obviously. People were like, that's not how the law's supposed to work.
And here in the U.S., the Patriot Act, post 9/11, gave the government a lot more power to snoop. Many felt it went way too far, chipped away at our freedoms.
Patriot Act, total game changer. That debate, security versus freedom, man, it got heated. And of course, then there's Guantanamo.
Guantanamo, oof, that's its own beast.
Ugh.
Detaining suspected terrorists offshore indefinitely. No trial, often.
Legal and ethical mess, that whole thing. Like, the Supreme Court couldn't even touch it till 2008 because the detainees weren't prisoners of war, technically, so Geneva Convention protections out the window. And the interrogation methods, controversial is putting it mildly.
Waterboarding, sleep deprivation, messing with their senses. A lot of people straight up called it torture. Bad look for America globally. So did any of that actually make us safer? Or did it just make things worse, create more anger, more radicalization?
Historians are still arguing about that one. Some say, hey, those tough tactics were necessary. Others, like Paul English, this scholar, he's like, terrorists want us to overreact. That's their game. Fear, repression, that's the climate they thrive in.
So fighting terrorism could actually be like feeding the beast. That's messed up.
Yeah.
Didn't Obama try to dial some of that back, though?
Yeah, his administration, definitely a shift. They were all about closing Guantanamo, though it got bogged down, never fully happened. And ditching those harsh interrogation techniques. Part of it was all the backlash here and abroad. I was like, okay, we got to rethink this. Counterterrorism, it's more than just like, whack-a-mole with terrorists. You got to get at the root of it. Why are people turning to this in the first place?
Yeah, got to fix the broken system, not just the symptoms. But sometimes you just need the military, right? Like, what about when you've got these huge organized groups or countries literally backing them up?
Oh, absolutely. Military's got its place. Historically, two main approaches there. One, you take out the regimes that support terrorists, like Afghanistan after 9/11. The Taliban, they were harboring al-Qaeda, so boom, U.S.-led invasion.
Iraq too, kinda. I mean, the main justification was different, but that whole WMD terrorism link, that got people on board.
Yeah, the war on terror, man, that shifted things. Military action became like the go-to. The second approach, more direct. You hit the camps, training grounds, take out the leaders. Drones, that's the U.S.'s big thing. Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, going after al-Qaeda bigwigs.
Israel's got their airstrikes on Hezbollah and Lebanon. Then you've got those massive campaigns like Chechnya second time around and Sri Lanka, the army going after the Tamil Tigers. Brutal stuff.
Those were rough. Lots of civilian casualties, unfortunately. Long-term fallout, too.
So military can disrupt things, take out infrastructure, that's clear. But here's the thing that bugs me. Does it actually solve anything long-term? Like you kill one leader, another one pops up, especially if the underlying problems are still there, right?
It's the age-old question, isn't it? Short-term, yeah, you might win a battle. But the root cause, the anger, the poverty, whatever's fueling it, that's still there.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Exactly. You got to treat the disease, not just the symptoms. Otherwise, it keeps coming back.
History's full of examples, too. Northern Ireland, the Basque Country, Sri Lanka. Fighting just made things worse. More people got pissed off.
And you got to factor in the blowback, the unintended consequences. Abu Ghraib, remember that? U.S. soldiers abusing prisoners in Iraq totally wrecked America's image, gave terrorists a propaganda goldmine.
Winning hearts and minds, that's as important as anything, I guess.
100%. You can't just bomb your way to peace. If you alienate people, with indiscriminate attacks, heavy-handed tactics, you're basically creating more terrorists.
So, walk a tightrope, basically. Strong enough to scare them off, but not so strong that you push them further into it.
And how do you even measure success in this fight? It's not like, capturing a flag or conquering territory. Terrorism, it's an ideology. It's constantly shifting.
Yeah, goals are murky. How do you know if you're actually winning?
Right. That makes it really hard to say, okay, this military intervention, did it actually work in the long run? Are we making things better or just kicking the can down the road?
Big questions for the folks making the decisions, huh? And it's not just the immediate impact. It's like, what happens 10, 20 years down the line? Politically, socially, how stable is the region?
All crucial. Which brings us to the third strategy we talked about, political deals.
Now this is where things get interesting. And kind of controversial, let's be real.
Definitely a thorny issue. It's like, can you actually negotiate with terrorists? Is that even ethical? And if so, when? What are the risks? The rewards?
Tough to swallow, right?
Yeah.
Making deals with people who've done terrible things. Where's the justice in that? But then, what if it stops the violence, saves lives?
No easy answers. But we got to at least talk about it, right?
No.
If we want to find counterterrorism strategies that actually work and work for the long haul.
It's funny, isn't it? Political deals. It sounds so, I don't know, dirty almost. Like you're betraying the victims or giving in to the bad guys.
Yeah, it's definitely got a bad rap, but governments have done it throughout history. Sometimes it's the only way out, or at least it seems that way at the time.
Like that whole Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland. They were talking to paramilitaries, both sides.
Colombia, too. Years of peace talks with the FARC rebels ended up with the big peace deal back in 2016. Not that it was easy, obviously. Lots of drama along the way.
So what's the secret sauce? What makes some deals work and others just blow up?
Both sides got to be willing to give a little. That's key. If one side's all my way or the highway, forget it.
Makes sense. Got to be some give and take. But the trust thing, that's got to be hard, right? How do you even sit down with people who've done such awful things?
Trust doesn't happen overnight, for sure. It's baby steps. Little things like releasing prisoners or agreeing to a ceasefire. Those can build some momentum.
What about mediators? I feel like they're pretty crucial in these situations. Someone neutral to keep things from going off the rails.
Oh, absolutely. International groups, respected figures, they can be huge. They help everyone communicate, make sure everyone's sticking to the plan.
Okay, so best case scenario, you get a deal. Then what? How do you actually make it stick?
That's where the real work begins, honestly. You got to have ways to keep tabs on everyone, make sure they're following through. Deadlines, clear consequences, everyone's got to buy in.
And it can't just be about, like, stopping the fighting. You got to fix the stuff that caused it in the first place, right? Politics, poverty, discrimination, all that.
Exactly. Political deals, they're not the finish line. They're more like the starting block. You're trying to build peace, long term. That takes investment, bringing people together, growing the economy, making sure the government's on the up and up.
Sounds kind of familiar, actually. State security, military action, even these deals. It's all about looking at the big picture, isn't it?
100%. There's no magic bullet with terrorism. It's complicated. It changes all the time. You got to be flexible, willing to adapt.
And maybe it's not always about, crushing the terrorists. Maybe it's about making terrorism obsolete, like making a world where it doesn't even make sense anymore.
That's the dream, right? Counterterrorism, it's not just about reacting. It's about preventing. Building societies that can resist that kind of extremism.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? Well, if you're studying for your UPSC exams, especially the international relations stuff, this whole conversation is gold.
But even if you're not understanding how counterterrorism works or doesn't work, that's important for everyone. It's a global issue, affects us all.
Like we've been saying, there's no one right answer. It's about being aware of the options, the consequences, and then, well, having those tough conversations. What's the best way forward? No easy answers.
It's about more than just, good guys versus bad guys. It's about creating a world where there are fewer reasons to become a bad guy in the first place.
And on that note, I think we'll wrap things up. Hopefully this deep dive gave you some things to think about. If you're into this kind of stuff, hit that like button, subscribe, tell your friends. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep those brains engaged.